I went to GDC this year, and on the flight I watched It's Quieter in the Twilight, a documentary about the Voyager spacecrafts. It shows the struggles the scientists have had maintaining them while still trying to do science. For example, quickly rerouting power from the heater that keeps its propulsion fuel from freezing to the magnetometer to do a sweep to collect data before quickly turning the heater back on. I thought this could make for a really interesting horror game and set to work making it. So the game concept is, you're the pilot of a space probe dubbed Voyager 19. You photograph and record radio waves of planets, your ship decays over time, making completing missions harder and harder, and finally have some kind of creepy stuff happen. Now, I wanted the player to actually be inside the probe because that's scarier than remotely controlling it, which I guess makes this basically Iron Lung in space, which I'm okay with because I've always wanted to try making an Iron Lung style game. The first thing I made was the computer monitor where you control the probe. It's a basic UI system controlled with the arrow keys and enter. The color scheme is inspired by the Play-Doh computer from the 60s. I think warm orange glowing retro computer screens are very cool, and from this monitor you can access different menus.
Mission shows your current mission progress and lets you travel to the next one when you're done.
Navigation shows a map of the star system you're in, and you can choose locations to travel to, though it isn't one-to-one accurate with the actual 3D world. Behind the scenes, I move you much closer to planets and snap you at set distances, so it's easier to take pictures and record planets. Speaking of, the sensors menu lets you take those photos and toggle the radio on and off. The radio has a simple waveform display that tracks the last few frames of how loud audio from the radio audio bus was and draws lines of different heights and colors based on that.
The camera uses a 3D camera in a different viewport where all the planets are to take a picture and then loads that picture to the screen using a shader that draws it in one block at a time.
This effect was partially inspired by those blocky NASA panoramas, and the way it works is in shader I divide the UVs into the column and row count, assign each block an index, divide by total block count, and then have an externally set load percentage float that goes from 0 to 1, and then any block higher than that value is rendered black. I'll link the shader code in the description. For the actual graphics, I used the free tool Textures for Planets to generate the planet textures, and for stars I used the sun texture from Solar System Scope, and then wrote a shader to let me recolor it with a gradient texture so I could easily have different kinds of stars. And the background is just their stars texture applied to a sky sphere with a random rotation applied to it. Alright, next up is the power menu. Here you can toggle which systems are powered and see how much total power you have available. You can even turn off life support if you want, though you will die if you don't turn it back on in time. And finally, the files menu is where you can view files in your spacecraft's database. I also added support for receiving encrypted files that can then be decrypted, though it will take some time. Now, I had made a manual page also, but it didn't really add anything to the game and was a lot of work to write, so I removed it. I originally planned to have the game entirely viewed through this monitor with the explanation that it was pressed to your eyes in your hibernation pod, but I realized it would be a lot more creepy and claustrophobic feeling if you could actually see the probe you're inside of. So I built these surroundings with some basic textures and tubing and made so you can look around and see your body. For the screen, I render the computer UI in a separate viewport and display that as a texture on a plane. And for this tube connected to your face, I used a 3D path in Godot with a CSG polygon mesh on it and then just locked the endpoint to the camera. Overall, this environment doesn't add anything to the gameplay, but it does look pretty cool. Now for spacecraft decay. Interstellar travel takes a long time, meaning the atomic battery powering your ship will decay and produce less power over time. So as the game progresses, you'll need to reroute power from different systems to complete your missions. Also, interstellar travel damages your electronics, leading to dead pixels on your monitor, making it harder to see what you're doing. The way this effect works is I have a random noise texture. The red channel is used to sample a gradient to decide the color of a dead pixel, and the blue channel is used to determine which pixels are dead by checking if the value is greater than a dead pixel percentage value that goes from 0 to 1. Shader code linked in the description again for this. I also added a loading bar on changing screens that takes longer to load as the game progresses to show that your computer is getting slower. With all the gameplay done, it was time to add some actual horror stuff, which I'm not going to talk about here. I'll make another video after the game comes out with spoilers explaining all of that. So go wishlist Voyager 19 on Steam. Coming soon.